Hello, everybody. It's Heather Newman, Microsoft Ignite Community Reporter here today with Jeff Teper, CVP of Microsoft Office, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Stream.
That's right.
Did I get it all right?
You got it all. Thank you.
Awesome. So we're here in the South Hall doing a little chit chat, and he's getting ready for his big day, probably with lots of meetings and more sessions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're at day 2 at Ignite. So yesterday was our big keynote session, and today I've got a mechanics video and a bunch of customer meetings, and gonna go sneak into some of my team's sessions in the back of the room in a low-key way, so I don't freak them out or anything like that. They
Right.
shouldn't be freaked out, but you know.
No, they should be bringing it, right?
Yes, yes,
absolutely.
which they always do.
Yeah,
We have an awesome group.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this will probably air a little bit later, so we won't let them know.
Okay.
We won't drop the secret yet. So you made a lot of announcements. Can you give us maybe a rundown of a few of the things that everybody saw when you were talking about all the great things coming?
Yeah, the big thing is we started off trying to be customer driven. We announced an incredible milestone, 100 million monthly active users for SharePoint, and highlighted customers like Velux and Mott McDonald and the Henson Company and Nestle, who are helping us drive the next round of innovation. And then we showed just a bunch of news.
Yeah.
I think I did 24 demo vignettes in a 45-minute keynote.
Wow.
You've seen a bunch of these.
Yeah.
I think it's the most insane thing I've ever done. Everybody's like, how did you know all that stuff? It's, well, you stick around long enough.
Yeah.
So we talked about everything from sort of fundamentals, things people have been asking us for, like multilingual SharePoint sites or Delta synchronization in OneDrive, but also some real breakthrough things. You heard Satya talk about Project Cortex, right, which is our use of AI to automatically generate an enterprise wiki for you and link it to all your experiences, to the Fluid Framework, which is a heterogeneous collaboration technology that will bring collaboration inside all the different tools from Microsoft. Lots more. We showed the update on SharePoint Spaces. We showed next-gen intranet stuff, new security work, new development work, Office script. So we've been programming in Visual Basic for a long time in Office. You can now program in Java using macro recording in Excel. So just, I think, something for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And note he said automagic.
Yes, yes. Where you don't have to understand how it works. You should look at what we're curating for you automatically, but hopefully it saves you 95% of the time of creating a great intranet by letting us harvest content for you and define topics, and then you can sort of decide which part of that you're going to expose to your users. That's
awesome. And so you said you've been here a long time. So for everybody, I've known you a long time because I was on your original marketing team
back in the early days. We're breaking through.
Absolutely. And I guess SharePoint was a little bit of a startup inside of Microsoft, if you will, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we were in the Office organization, right, and when we created it, people said, Jeff, Office doesn't do servers.
Right.
And we said, no, Office does productivity. And where does it matter where the code runs, in the desktop or the server? And so we're going to do an end-to-end productivity solution that's centered around not just content creation, but collaboration and what we call knowledge sharing and discovery now. And so we started it up, and after the first release, we learned a lot, and the second release is really what caused it to break through.
Yeah, that's awesome. So back in, did you, how does it feel to have something start from being a startup, a product like this with so many customers, to what it is today? Like, what does that feel like?
It is pretty humbling. At first, when you do anything new early in your career, you have the benefit of being naive. And so we thought it was just going to be pretty straightforward. We talked to all these companies who had these information management challenges. There were already tens of millions of people at that point who used Microsoft Office. And we thought, my gosh, this is obvious. Office needs a server. How hard can it be? And we're going to marry what was controversial at the time, and even today, I don't think anybody's done something like this. We married building a website with collaborating in Office documents into a holistic content management experience. That was our sort of big strategy idea, if you will. And so it all seemed very straightforward on paper. And sometimes I've shared the single sheet summary we showed to Bill and said, if we do this, it's all going to be fine. But along the way, it's harder than you think, because it's hard to, scale up a business globally. And then we hit a bit of a reset about 10, 12 years ago when the cloud came along, and we had to take a product that was designed for on-premises and really rewrite most of it internally for the cloud. And now we're running on 250,000 servers, 1 million requests per second, and dozens of data centers around the world. We're the largest consumer of Azure storage. And so that, to our team, thank you. Many years of hard work architecting SharePoint for the cloud so that we could stand up in front of people yesterday and send 100 million monthly active users.
It's amazing. Yeah, and customers and partners and the team and, it's like the SharePoint community, you and I have talked about this before, and we talk about it a lot, is that just this community is so strong. And thank you. And no, seriously, thank you, Jeff, for being so involved with it, coming to SharePoint Saturdays, supporting user groups, all of that. Like, it's palpable, and people notice, and it's awesome. So thank you.
Oh, it's, for those of you who don't know what Heather's talking about, we have people who not only give their time for free, but do it on a Saturday and get other people to take their day off and go into work, if you will, and learn about technology. And it's sort of pretty energizing, extremely energizing. So in the next few weeks, I'm going to be in Prague for the European SharePoint Conference. I will go to Oslo for SharePoint Saturday in Norway. And then in December, I'm going to go to SharePoint Saturday in Charlotte, North Carolina, because it's great to come to a big event like Ignite, where you've got the whole portfolio of products and thousands of people. But it's also neat to go to these sort of more medium-sized regional events and get to talk to people who they may never get to come to Ignite and learn about why they're using SharePoint, Microsoft 365. And so it's really our privilege, and however I can help the community, I'm always glad to.
Yeah, the SharePoint Saturdays, and now there's so many other Saturdays too. You have Flow coming up, and people are bringing in Office 365, and so there's, I don't know, how many in the world? You have it on slides. It's like 80.
Something like that. Some do it every year. My friends in Minnesota do it twice a year. They do an awesome job. Some do it every other year, and it's okay. But I think it's probably around 1,000 since the history of these things started.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty cool. So, and so let's switch gears a little bit. How about some origin story? People know where you're from, and a little bit of how you came up in the world of IT.
Sure. So I was a student doubling in computer science and finance at NYU undergrad, and I wanted to stay in New York for a summer, and so that meant getting a job, and so I got a small job, a job at a small investment firm, and I was really lucky. Nobody knew technology, so they hired me at 19 to write the portfolio analysis software, and the investment folks at the firm were really smart, but that was when the PCs were coming up, and you could be a 19-year-old and know more than the adults. And so I showed them something relatively quick, and I created our portfolio analysis software. And then after graduate school, I came back for a year, and I said, this is good, but what I really love is the software that's helping transform this company's business. And I can see it. And there's this company on the West Coast, and I remember talking to my parents, and my parents said, "You have a good job in New York, it pays well. What are you, crazy, taking a 50% cut in pay at the time?" Wow. It all worked out fine. But at the time, my parents almost tried to talk me out of it because they said, "Well, Microsoft, we don't know." And so I came to Microsoft, and my first job was doing developer evangelism, explaining people why they should write applications for Windows. And in fact, some of you have seen this video flying around. We did a satellite broadcast called DevCast. It was on satellite because there was no webcast, because there was no web. So it was a little while ago.
Early days.
And me and a few folks you might know, including Satya, were doing demos of how to build business solutions with Office. And so I just got fascinated with that problem. And I did a few things early on. I did the security and directory program management work in the first version of MSN. We spun that out into a product called Site Server. It did not do very well. Thankfully, Microsoft embraces failure and learning. I was given, along with the team, another shot. We created a new group I mentioned in our keynote yesterday called PKM. Out of Site Server became PKM, Publishing and Knowledge Management. The product name ultimately was SharePoint, and that grew to, I think, the fastest business Microsoft had, to $1 billion. And then the cloud came along, and it's time to start over all over again. So that was sort of the journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you always have embraced sort of the big, wonderful, crazy ideas that we had. No, you did. Like, we had...
You say that in a good way.
No, in a good...
Not everybody in our team feels that's like necessarily a really good thing every day. Oh, here he comes again.
Well, I'm a theater person, you know what I mean? So like, that's, so like, we brought kilts on stage, we had the boats, we have the Ferraris, we've done, like, you always said yes to all these harebrained ideas that we had.
I wish we had more pictures. There are these things now called cell phones that have cameras on them.
I know, right?
We weren't walking around with cameras in our pockets back then, so it would have been great to have pictures of all the people in kilts.
You know what? I have some.
Oh, good.
I need to pull them out, so I need to do a little retrospective for sure. Because I've got I don't have the hyperplane boats.
Oh,
remember Accelerate with SharePoint?
Yeah. That was great. 2003, I think. Those were neat.
And you remember? Do you remember starting the SharePoint conference? Of course you do.
It's like the Chris Farley, Paul McCartney skit on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Maybe in the Beatles.
I know. But I think because it was one of those where we had done the like that wrestling web part SmackDown. Do you remember that? It was like, I think it was Mike Fitzmaurice and Zoltan Diak.
Of course, it was Mike Fitzmaurice.
Yeah, totally. Hey, Mike. And so Fitzy. But we then, I think it was one of those where we said, let's do an event, and we were all talking about it. And then I do remember a discussion where we were like, let's ask Mr. Gates to be our keynote, and that was like a huge kind of thing to see if he would come.
Yeah, no, he did it, and he was a trooper. Bill's always loved this idea that we could have an application that democratized something, but under the covers, its storage was programmable. He really always pushed us on that and challenged us. And in fact, about 2 months ago, I had a review with Bill. And showed him the stuff we showed yesterday, including the thing that Bill, I think, is most excited about is the work around Power Apps and SharePoint and Office and Teams. In fact, I went with James Phillips in the Business Applications Group. They had their update with Bill a couple weeks ago and talked about the integration between Office and Power Platform. And so it was great he supported us because it was a sign at that very first SharePoint conference that we were real. We were a real product, that we weren't some 2-bit skunkworks thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so thank you, Bill.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Gates. Absolutely. I know. I've met him twice and demoed to him once and kept touching his arm when I was doing it because I was so excited. And he said to me, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he was like, no, it's fine. He's like, but the guy behind me, you better watch out for him. I was like, oh my God.
He's been a great advocate and supporter and gives us lots of demanding feedback. As does Satya and Rajesh. We have a very deep technical leadership in our company.
That's cool. I wanted to ask you about your marathon. And all of that in your running because you've been, it's sort of semi-new in your life, yeah?
Yeah, so I've always exercised a normal amount, but nothing crazy. And when I came back into SharePoint, we knew we were going to have a big reveal moment for the future of SharePoint. Kudos to Seth and the team for getting May 4th, 2016, so we could forever say, May the 4th be with you in SharePoint. It's just like, the kind of geeks we are. And so anyway, we had locked that date down, and I thought, it was a few months before, and I thought, this is a big professional moment for me. I need to do something to balance myself in my personal life. Jeff Rakes, who'd been one of the previous presidents of Office, used to tell us, here's the secret to not burning out. Balance your professional life with some sort of crazy passion in your personal life, because that'll be sort of reinforcing. And so I thought, why not run a marathon? So I ran a couple weeks before the May 4th event, the Vancouver Marathon, and I've run 8 now, including the Berlin one a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And before the SharePoint Conference 2020 in Las Vegas, book now, SharePoint 2020 Las Vegas.
That thing we were talking about before that SharePoint conference?
I'm really excited, and he'll make more news about it. You know it.
Yeah.
TJ and I are running the Boston Marathon for the Red Cross in April next year on Patriots Day in Boston.
That's
so
awesome.
Excited about that.
So TJ is the CEO of AvePoint, where I worked at one point as well, a great partner of ours.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so cool.
So
That'll be great. Oh, I wanted to ask you, and also just say, so one of the things that happened at SharePoint Conference when it came back a couple years ago in Vegas, so SharePoint conferences had been going for a very long time, and then there was a bit of a hiatus. And
yeah,
then,
we went to we reduced for a while the number of conferences we
Yeah.
had to really try to communicate one Microsoft and be more efficient internally.
Yeah.
But then what happened is all our product lines expanded in Azure, in
Yeah.
Microsoft 365, and the SharePoint folks, including a guy named Mark Rackley, maybe he's watching, were just relentless. Like, there was a lot of people giving us feedback, but one of our MVPs, Mark in particular, was just a dog with a bone on this. Like, you gotta bring it back, you gotta bring it back. And so at Ignite a few years ago, I was so excited just for Mark to close the keynote with SharePoint Conference Vegas. So
Yes.
it's back.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We're year 3 coming up.
Yeah, year 3 coming up. And one of the things we did on the first year coming back, thank you so much, and to Bill Bear as well, we did a diversity and inclusion track for the first time that was up against technical sessions, so you could go and do that. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, and thank you for making that a priority and putting sessions in. Lunches are great, and small things are great, and all of that. But to say this is important enough to bring it into the full catalog,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, no, I think I had not appreciated early in my career that we needed to take, particularly as tech, which has its issues at times, and as sort of a male-led company predominantly, we couldn't just sit passively by. We had to take an active role and facilitate and role model. And so I was really excited to have that track. The thing about that, a lot of what we do with these things is we talk. We say, here's what we're doing about this secret thing we've kept from you for the last 6 months that you know nothing about, and we're smarter than you about it. And so here we're going to tell you, but then we're going to listen to what you think. The thing that was great about the diversity and inclusion track that we've done is we didn't talk, we listened. We had people from around the industry, different backgrounds, women leaders in particular. One of the things that was really neat was last SPC, we got to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Women in SharePoint. And so we got to learn about the significant challenges in diversity in tech in particular, but in industry in general, and what kind of role we could provide. And it's really great. We have so many awesome role models in the community like you. Thank you for all you've done, being part of these events. In the team, I think we have some amazing people. If you look at our biggest news this week, Project Cortex, Naomi Moneypenny, former MVP, came to work at Microsoft, leading that team. That's great. So many other diverse leaders as part of the team. And so I would say the thing we want to do is not come off as preachy on this topic. We want to use our ability to bring people together in big forums like Ignite and the SharePoint conference and get together and talk about this stuff so we can learn from everybody else out there.
Awesome. Yeah, the panels and discussions and unconferences and workshops, exactly what you're saying. Okay, last question.
Sure.
We drifted. Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens. We drifted a little. So last question. So when you were interviewing Satya, did you ask him for his strengths and weaknesses?
I must have. And I don't remember. Gosh, nobody tells you. Yeah, I must have done like 1,000 interviews in my career, and nobody told you at the time.
Yeah.
It's going to be the CEO.
Right.
But I remember, he was wicked smart. He was very curious. He was energetic, and certainly none of us knew at the time on the interview loop, but in retrospect, you sort of look back and say, well, yeah, of course. some of the attributes that he really stresses, having a growth mindset, being intellectually curious, being a learn-it-all and not a know-it-all.
Right.
Now I sort of can look back at getting to work with him earlier in his career and saying, oh yeah, those attributes, which are pretty rare, were present then. So it's great to see what he's done, not only in his career but the company. What a privilege it is to work at Microsoft.
Agreed. And privileged to be involved as partners and MVPs and customers and all of that as well. He's got the people call them soft skills, right?
Yeah.
They're really power skills, and he's got those in spades,
Yeah. I think just how leadership has evolved over the last several decades, mm-hmm. It doesn't happen overnight, but the changes are pretty dramatic. And as we see, every year, the SharePoint OneDrive team is pretty big. So every year let's call it 150, 200 new people join the team. And I get to chat with, small groups of them, and people are, just want to understand people's perspective coming in earlier in career. And it is not just a priority, but is a top priority for almost everybody coming in to be part of a company that has integrity, has a mission beyond making money or just doing cool tech. And Satya's leadership around that resonates incredibly well, both with people who've been at the company a long time, but also we see as we're out competing on college campuses and computer science departments and MBA programs trying to recruit people, we're getting top talent fired up to come and work at Microsoft in a large part because of Satya's leadership and the cultural focus that he set for the company.
Absolutely, and that helps with retention of people too, right? You get those excited people, and you want them to stay and stay a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of competition in tech for talent and customers, but again, I think if you appeal to people's higher needs about being part of a community, mm-hmm. like we've done with the SharePoint community or a company, that's really what gets people's heart and soul into a career. And so it's been great to see the leadership, and we've all learned a lot from him.
Absolutely, yeah. So thank you so much for that.
Sure.
And thank you for being the heart and soul of SharePoint for such a long time.
It's neat. I love the fact that we keep reinventing. We surprise people. I remember when we first did the cloud thing, the community said, "Oh, I don't know if the cloud's going to work." And now that we're really embracing, not just in an incubation way, but in a mainstream way, AI, it's great. It's been unbelievable to see the excitement this week. Yeah. So thank you for everybody who's been part of us reinventing SharePoint, as you need to in tech.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Jeff, so much. I'm like, yay! You're the best.
Thanks.
Is he not the best? Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks.
Yay.
Okay, you got it?
Yep, I totally got it, and I'll get out of your hair. So, I want to make sure we were recording sometimes.
Okay, that would.
I just want to make sure. Double check. So.